Tonight I'll invite Ajahn Anan to give a talk, give you some more teachings. This will be the last of the evening talks of this session of teachings that we've had over the last couple of weeks. I'm very grateful for the teachings we've received from all the different visiting Ajahns. So as it is the last of the evening talks, make your minds peaceful to receive the Dhamma so that you can take it away and contemplate it for the future. This evening I'd like to give my blessing to you all. You've all come to listen to the Dhamma, so please relax, and if you wish you can practice meditation as I talk and as you listen. Establish mindfulness and try to make your mind peaceful. It might be the case that as you're listening you don't understand my words, they're in Thai, or the sound itself is not clear or disappears from your consciousness. That doesn't matter, just relax and keep practicing mindfulness. If you wish you can follow the breath and don't concern yourself about the sound of my words if you don't understand the language. I wish to talk about the practice of Dhamma. When we do this, when we talk about the practice, the aim is to increase and develop the understanding of the Dhamma and to gain more clarity on the way to practice. We have to do this because sometimes we have obstacles in our practice and which we need to clear up, and we can do this through developing more understanding through listening to the Dhamma. Even if we have no particular obstacle or problem at the moment, listening to Dhamma can also be a great source of inner peace and happiness. As we listen, we can often get a lot of joy arising. So listening to the Dhamma is a very important part of the practice. It helps us to understand more clearly the path or the way to practice. Today we've all given up our time and energy to come out here to listen to the Dhamma, to join into this with this evening's program. Some people came this morning and went home again and have come back. Some people stayed all day. This is all because we have an interest to practice the Dhamma. Over the last few days I've already been giving you some teachings on the very beginnings of practice, the basic methods to make your mind peaceful. Tonight I'll talk a little bit more or go a bit further with the development of wisdom and the practice of contemplation to develop insight. How to develop what we call pavana maya panya, that is the wisdom that comes from a still, peaceful mind that allows us to uproot and abandon our attachments and mental defilements. When we practice, in the beginning we need a firm belief and confidence, both in the teacher and the way of practice. So we have our teachers, say of the modern era, Luang Por Man, Luang Por Cha. We put our faith in them and the method of practice that they've left us. The next thing we need is effort and energy. We need to put effort into developing the path, particularly to develop the quality of sati, mindfulness, and to develop samadhi from that. We also need to put effort into training ourselves in contemplation of the Dhamma, using our mindfulness to contemplate this body, to contemplate the 32 parts of the body, to see the body as the 4 elements of earth, air, fire and water. It takes effort to keep mindfulness there within the body. You can do this in different situations. For instance, you might have been sitting in a car coming here today. If you're a passenger, you might just take that time, that opportunity to quietly contemplate your own body in this way, to run through the 32 parts, to note them, visualize them, reflect on them. If you're the driver of the car, it might be more difficult to do this, so you might just put on a Dhamma talk on a CD or a tape and just listen to that, and you can still gain some benefit as you drive along. The aim of our practice is to develop a sense of continuity. Ideally, you're aiming to practice from morning through till the end of the evening when you go to bed. That's the best way if you want to actually see some results and progress in your practice. Of course, when we begin the practice, we have a lot of confusion, mental agitation. There's a lot of doubt and uncertainty about the way to proceed. We all want to have a peaceful mind, but how can we achieve it? What method can we use? We have to learn the method and the way to develop the highest peace and the purity of mind that is free from kilesa, the mental defilements. The very beginning of this method or this way is the practice of dana, generosity, learning to share and to give up, particularly your material things, learning to share and give up material things to go against the tendency towards greed and attachment. We also have to learn to follow the 5 precepts, establish those 5 precepts in our heart as our regular standard of behavior. And even on some occasions we might determine to keep the 8 precepts. When we determine for ourselves to keep the precepts, we call this samatthana virat. It means just mentally making that determination to follow the precepts and cut off those unwholesome tendencies in our behavior that lead us to break the precepts. We can do this for ourselves. We just quietly resolve to keep the precepts, maybe sitting in front of a Buddha or a picture of the Buddha or a Buddha statue. And this is one way we can achieve a certain level of purity, by letting go of kilesas on this level. However, it might be the case that we still have inside our minds some mental proliferation and unwholesome and agitated states of mind. The mind will sometimes be in an unwholesome state, sometimes in a wholesome state. The reason we still fall into unwholesome states of mind is because deep down in the mind there's still some wrong views there, fueled by delusion. The heart of our practice then is learning to abandon these unwholesome states of mind and prevent them from arising again, and to bring up and establish wholesome states of mind and develop them. For instance, we might be bothered by angry states of mind, different kinds of negative thoughts. So we have to learn to find skillful ways to abandon them. We have to learn how to bring up thoughts of kindness and compassion. And we can do this through regularly meditating on that theme, the theme of loving kindness and compassion. It's natural that every day we will experience some tiredness, even some stress from our work and our daily lives. I used to be just the same before I was a monk. I had a job and I wanted to practice, but I found it very tiring. In the morning I would try to practice some anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, before I left the house. I would try and find some more time during my lunch break from work, maybe to sit in a quiet place, and for 15-20 minutes I would practice anapanasati. Then again, when I came home late at night, I would do some more. In this way I found that even though it was tiring and hard work, I could maintain a better level of mindfulness than how I had previously before I started practicing. With this level of mindfulness I found that I had a more lightness of body and mind, and that gave me a lot of encouragement to keep practicing. I also used to use the 5 precepts as regular guidelines for my behavior, and then of course I had to rely on a lot of patience and endurance in this practice as well. When the mind did become peaceful, I always turned to contemplate the body. First of all, just using memory and thought, thinking about it, memorizing the different parts of the body and thinking about how they are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and ultimately they're not self, they're beyond our control and they don't really have an owner. Once we determine to practice the Dhamma and we're really sincere in our commitment, then we can really experience the results of the practice. The way that the Buddha taught, we call the Eightfold Noble Path. We can summarize those 8 factors of the path as Sila, Samadhi and Panya. And this is the foremost way to enlightenment. It's the leading way. The Lord Buddha was the one who met with this way through his own efforts towards the end of suffering. So we should all contemplate and reflect on the fact of our own good fortune, the fact that we've been able to come into contact with the teachings of the Lord Buddha and hear this way that leads to the end of suffering so that we can follow for ourselves. Right here in Melbourne we have the chance to practice the Buddhist teachings and follow them. We have this monastery, Buddha Bodhiwana Monastery, with Venerable Ajahn Kalyana as the teacher. This is our great good fortune that we have a place to come and practice and hear the teachings. What we should do now is determine to use our time, to use this very life for furthering our practice and for developing ourselves. We can do this every day because time is passing us by every day. We're getting closer to our death and the end of our life every day. We can't be sure that when we do die, what will happen to our minds? Where will they go? What will happen next? So now that we have met with the teachings of the Lord Buddha, we should determine to practice accordingly and be aiming to develop good karma that will bring us the development, the happiness and the understanding that we wish. We should aim to develop the practice of dana and the practice of sila. We should be helping our families and society to develop the wholesome dhammas and to follow our duties to family and society correctly. We should make the effort to listen to the Dhamma regularly and the effort to develop ourselves through the practice of meditation. We should put effort into developing mindfulness, and that firmness of mind that comes with the practice of mindfulness and the peace of samadhi. Even if it's difficult, we have to keep trying, because this is our chance, this is our opportunity now that we have met with the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha said, one who sees the Buddha sees the Dhamma, one who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. So we shouldn't think that the Dhamma is something far away or related to a certain place or country. We live here in Australia, but if we can practice to see the Dhamma here, then we can see the Buddha here. If we can make the mind peaceful and contemplate the Dhamma and develop insight into the true nature of phenomena, to see the anicca, dukkha, anatta of phenomena, then this is as if we see the Lord Buddha. When we see the Dhamma or have insight into the Dhamma, then we'll see the Buddha. When we have insight into this truth, this is what will remove doubts and uncertainty about everything from the mind. Insight is that which clears away doubt. We can keep practicing, whatever our backgrounds, wherever we're from, whatever country, doesn't matter. The important thing is to follow the Eightfold Path as the Buddha laid down, aiming to realize the Four Noble Truths. We begin with the practice of learning to calm the mind, samatha bhavana. Make the mind very still and calm through the practice of mindfulness on a meditation object. From this, and using this as a foundation, we train ourselves in wisdom, learning to investigate the truth of this body, to see the body as something that is made up of the four elements, and to see that the true nature of this body is that it's impermanent, it's changeable, it's constantly moving towards its end, towards death and degeneration, and that ultimately it's without an owner. We can't control it or make it do what we want, so there's no real owner in this body. The Buddha said we must contemplate to get to the point where we can see this body is just a body. It's not a person, a being, us or them, me or mine. Of course, in the beginning we tend to attach to this body as ours. We take ownership of it. But as we develop our mindfulness and learn to contemplate to see the truth, then we go beyond that delusion and we can see the truth of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and the lack of self in this body. So please keep resolving to practice on a regular basis. The Dhamma that we practice is like food or nourishment for the heart. Both nourishes and bathes the heart. In Australia here it's a very wealthy, stable country and there's plenty of physical food available. The food is very good here. But what we need more of is the food for the heart that comes through the Dhamma practice. And it's this practice that is aiming towards liberation of our hearts from the causes of suffering. Just as the Lord Buddha showed us over 2,500 years ago. But this Dhamma is still valuable and relevant to today, to us today. Don't doubt about it, that it is the way to liberation. We have living proof in the modern masters, Luang Por Man, Luang Por Cha, who showed that this path really does lead to enlightenment and the end of suffering. It'll be out of the peaceful mind that we develop through the practice that we're able to see through our normal delusions and attachments to conventional reality, what we call samuti, satya, the apparent or conventional reality. It's only through the development of wisdom and investigating truth that we can penetrate through this to what we call vimutti, a liberation of heart. Liberation comes with the ending of fear, greed and anger. Normally we're caught into the conventional reality, it deludes us and we have this sense of self and ownership of our experience. This sense of self and the delusion feeds all the different moods and mental states of suffering that we have, coming from greed, anger and delusion. But as we practice, we're learning to let go of these. We're learning to let go of upadana, or attachment, let go of desire, tanha. These are the causes of suffering. These are the things we have to abandon if we want to free ourselves from suffering. If the mind is free of upadana and tanha, or craving and attachment, then suffering cannot arise. The way to free the mind from these things, these attachments and craving, is through the practice of sila, samadhi and panya. This is the way that leads to letting go. It's the way to letting go and overcoming ignorance. And little by little the mind becomes purer through this practice. We have the Lord Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha as our refuge. And He's given us this way to follow, the way of practice. So we must make our mind very firm, make our faith and confidence in this path very firm. The most firm kind of faith we call achara sattha. This is the kind of faith that's unshakable. Whatever happens in our lives, to the world around us, our faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha cannot be shaken or changed. The Lord Buddha taught this way out of suffering. And it's something that if we can experience for ourselves, it's like a miracle. The miracle of the mind, the miracle of the peaceful mind and the happy mind. So please determine to put as much effort as you can into this practice of Dhamma. And this will allow you to see the Buddha. Andamayang ovadakata sadhu karang dhammasai Sadhu, 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 anumodam. ก่อนโยมจะกลับก็จะมีถ่ายรูปจะให้คณะสงฆ์นั่งแล้วก็แยกกันนั่งเนี่ยมีจะถามปัญหาอะไรไหม Before we finish, does anyone have any questions they want to ask about the practice? Anyone have any doubts? ใครมีคำถามไหม Normally, as human beings, we have basic experience. We have a body and a mind, and normally our view is deluded. We have this sense that this body and mind is a self. We own it, we control it, it's us, it's a self, a being, a person. However, when we follow the Buddhist path, the Buddhist teachings, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, gradually we're training our mind to understand more deeper and to help to break through that delusion to the point where we can actually see and know that attachment to the body and mind, the sense of self, it's a delusion, it's not true. And really this body and this mind are subject to anicca, dukkha, anatta. They're not a self, they're uncontrolled, something that we can't control, something we can't own. There's nothing to be owned in that. That change of view, training the mind in Sila, Samadhi and Panya, that change of view gives rise to the experience we call emptiness, where the mind has this sense of cool, peaceful, detached emptiness of self. By changing its view, we experience that little by little. It grows and it becomes more of a profound experience for us. This sense of emptiness comes through seeing through what we call samuti satcha, the conventional way, or the apparent reality. Apparent reality is that there's a person, there's a being, there's an us. But when you see through that more clearly through developing and training in Sila, Samadhi, Panya, then our wisdom, our insight sees, well, that's not true. That's only a superficial reality. Deep down, or seeing through that, we get to vimutti, which is the liberation from that wrong view. This is what gives rise to emptiness. Having done that, having completed that, training that path, we reach nibbana, which is, you might say, is the highest emptiness. But nibbana is not anything that you can label in a normal sense. So you can't really say nibbana is self or it's not self. It's not atta or anatta. Nibbana is just nibbana. It's just the way things are. Puru, or the one who knows, or the knowing, is something, it's a quality that we have to develop through the practice. And normally we tend, or say one who hasn't practiced, will tend to be deluded by their own moods, their own experiences in life, their thoughts, their moods, their mental states. And this is a cause of suffering. So we develop the knowing, or the knower, or the one who knows, in order to understand that, to see that process, to see what's happening. It's a quality we have to train, to bring up, to develop. As we develop, over time, this quality of the knowing that grows in the mind or in the heart, it's what is known is all mental objects that come to our mind are known. We're training to know them all, and know them all as anicca, dukkha, anatta. What arises out of this is that we see that if we attach to any kind of object that comes to the mind, and when we say attach, meaning we don't have that quality of knowing, clear knowing and understanding of it as anicca, dukkha, anatta, when we attach, we're going to suffer in some way or other. If we have the knowing, develop the knowing to a point where we clearly see the anicca, dukkha, anatta of all objects, well, we won't suffer. The mind will be free from suffering. So this quality of the one who knows, it's a wholesome quality that one trains in, develops, and ultimately becomes that which performs what we call Dhammanupassana Satipatthana, or that the fourth foundation of mindfulness, where the mind, this quality of knowing in the mind is knowing all objects, physical, mental, that the mind can experience as anicca, dukkha, anatta, as not self, as impermanent, as unsatisfactory, as not self. It's something that begins just in small ways. Through our practice, we're learning to develop more mindfulness, more of this quality of knowing and awareness. As it develops more continuity, sati develops into samadhi. At first it might still be on a fairly mundane level, just temporarily leading to states of liberation, letting go of different kinds of mental states and attachments which cause us suffering. But that's still helpful. Of course, we're aiming to completely abandon, completely uproot all our mental states. So that's the aim, is to train this quality of knowing, or the knower, or the one who knows, to that point where it can see the true nature of phenomena and completely uproot all attachments. So it seems to develop on levels, you could say. We have levels of seeing the anatta, the not self, in physical and mental phenomena. So in the beginning, it's on a more coarse level. We can see as we progress in the practice, it goes to a more refined level, and so on. You might just develop this quality of the one who knows in your daily life in the beginning, just knowing your state of mind. Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Is there greed present or not? Is there anger present or not? Is the mind deluded or not? And as you train in this development of this quality of the knowing, you'll see how when there is greed, anger or delusion present in the mind, well, it's always leading on to some suffering. It's a cause of suffering. So you train in developing sila and samadhi panya. You're training this quality of knowing to the point where it can see, these are the causes of suffering. Any form of greed, anger, delusion arising in my mind is a cause of suffering. So you're learning to let go of the attachment to those mental states. This is how we begin training the one who knows, or the knowing. And as we do this, we start to experience true letting go of the causes of suffering, what we call samucceda pahana, where we're actually cutting off different mental defilements which are the cause of suffering. It's the training in this, the one who knows, that allows us to do this. It might involve having a conversation with yourself. Certainly in the beginning of the practice, the way we develop this quality of knowing, say mindfulness, clear comprehension, can be like that. You're asking yourself, what am I attached to here? Or is this an attachment? Is this thing I'm attached to, is it temporary or is it permanent? Is it the cause of happiness or suffering? Is it self, not self? As you discuss it within your mind, you're making your mind more mindful and bringing more understanding up. That can lead to letting go on one level, and letting go of various attachments which are causing us suffering. You can do it that way. You probably wouldn't say it's the highest or ultimate level of letting go yet, but it's a valid way to practice, and in the beginning it'll often be like that, yes. The only person who is, you might say, self-enlightened without a teacher is the Buddha himself. It's one of the first questions he was asked by a Brahmin after his enlightenment was, who is your teacher? He said, I have no teacher, I'm self-enlightened. That's one of the defining qualities of the Buddha. After that, those who become enlightened understand, follow the path and reach the end of suffering, or what we call sāvakas, enlightened disciples of the Buddha. So they all depend on the Buddha as their first teacher, and the words of the Buddha to help them understand the Dhamma and see the path. As we know, in the life of the Buddha, the time of the Buddha, there were many enlightened disciples. some disciples do have great parami, they develop their spiritual parami and spiritual qualities and faculties to the point where they're very close to seeing the Dhamma. And so it would be the case sometimes the Buddha would go to find them. He'd know somebody was in a situation where they're very ripe, mature to see the Dhamma, close to seeing the Dhamma. He might travel, maybe walk a long distance to meet with them, or he'd find the occasion to meet with that person, give a Dhamma teaching, and they might become a Sotapanna or even Arahant in just listening to the words of the Buddha. However, the rest of us, that's not the case. We are not ripe or mature enough to just hear one talk and become enlightened as those people in the time of the Buddha. For the rest of us are more like, say, Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana, very good examples of people who had the aspiration to free themselves from suffering, to find true happiness, but they hadn't yet found the right teacher or the true teacher. They had one teacher, but they realized he can only teach them so much. So they started looking for another teacher, and they made a pact, or whoever finds that the teacher will teach them the true way to the end of suffering, they'll tell the other. So as they're spending their time waiting for the right teacher to come along, looking around for teachers, Venerable Sariputta came across Venerable Assaji walking. He was one of the first 5 ascetics who heard the first teachings of the Buddha and was one of the first arahants or enlightened disciples. He's walking in the village. He had a very composed manner, very bright, radiant aura around him, and his skin seemed very bright coloured. And Sariputta, seeing him, was sure this must be somebody who is enlightened, or the pupil, the student of an enlightened teacher, just by his demeanour. He thought, they must for sure. So he went up and asked him questions. Can you teach me the Dhamma? And Venerable Assaji said, I won't teach you the Dhamma, I'm a student of the Buddha. And that led Venerable Sariputta on to ask questions and to eventually follow him back to meet the Buddha. For most of us it has to be like that. We have our aspiration to end suffering, to develop our spiritual path. We have to make that effort to look for a teacher, a true teacher who can teach us the way to the end of suffering.